So I've been thinking a lot about politics, I guess, in the last 2 days. Thinking, well, that why have the borders been open, and why has Paris been destroyed by third worlders, and why for the last 12 years has just loads and loads of people come into England. I guess because I was focused on just wanting to go to America, I kind of, and I knew that people in England were just ignoring me. I kind of just didn't focus on like the rapid destruction of England. Why has this been happening? I have been thinking about like why this was happening or what the intent or purpose was. And I guess I don't know when I've really been talking about the housing market crash, because I at the beginning I was convinced that you were just going to expose me as being Christ, and that everything would be fine. You'd find out who are my people, and there wouldn't be any like problem. You just show the evidence and people would believe. And then after years and years of realizing that, I was seeing clients and I was telling them no one was interested, no one took me seriously. It's amazing. There is one person that I'm seeing now as a client, someone I've trusted for or seen for a very long time. I'm not seeing new people because I don't know how Islamic they are or how many friends that are Islamic, so I'm not seeing new people, but there's one person. And it's amazing though how he just doesn't believe. He doesn't take an interest. He doesn't, I've talked about me being in the rapture and me going, and I was making fun of how my uncle can't remember. Like I could tell him about the rapture and it being me going into a nice house in America. And yet, even though I've told him so many times, all he can remember is that it's about the end of the world, which is not what I've told him. So he's not listening to me basically. And then when I was trying to talk to this client, do you remember what I'm saying about the rapture, what the rapture is? And he didn't want to respond. It was like he didn't like remember almost, but he did remember. I remembered. Well, I asked him, do you think it's about the end of the world? And he said no. So he knew it wasn't about as bad as that, but again, he didn't actually know what to say. He just knew that I thought I was going to America, and that was about all he knew. And it's just amazing because I've had so many long conversations with him about it, and I don't know what he thinks. I don't know what it's like. I can't understand humans. I don't know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at a human. I feel like there's something inside them that just makes them ignore me. But anyway, going back to the destruction of England and the destruction of Europe. It's not happening just in England, it's happening all over Europe. Maybe they knew that there's going to be, so I've been getting angry and angry and angry, and maybe the people who've been watching my videos have noticed that I've been getting angry and angry and angry, and have started to realize that it's going to amount to lots of people committing suicide over this. If you have this strong belief that God is something, and then you find out that actually God is something completely different. If you are convinced for your whole life that God loves you, and then you realize that actually God hates you and doesn't give a shit if you live or die, that might make you very, very suicidal. And so I think they've always known that there's going to be some sort of housing market collapse. How bad it's going to be, I don't know, because I think they will do what's best for them, and I don't think they want a massive housing market crash. So there's a point. There have been points where I feel like you're not exposing me because you don't want this housing market crash, but maybe the reason why you do want a housing market crash is because you want. You want to try and, if something bad's around the corner, you want to try and make sure that it doesn't affect you in a negative way. You'll make sure that it only affects the stupid ones or the ones you don't like. And so if the reason why England has been invaded by foreigners is because you are hoping to bring all these foreigners in with, maybe if they've got like £100,000 or £200,000 in a different property across abroad, you would want them to sell their house and then buy like a £400,000 house in England, so that they could take out a gigantic mortgage, a mortgage which they'll be paying off for the next 5 years, but when the crash happens, well, the housing market will halve and the bankers would get their money back, because the money that they've given them as an investment is still in the property, but they've taken everything away from them. But I think they're still offering 5% loans. There's these stupid loans where the people only need 5%, and then the banks pay the rest and they have to just pay the interest. Now technically by doing that you have become a slave, because you're going to spend your whole life or the next 25 years paying off money to the banks. But if the banks know that you're going to, I don't know, I mean, technically if even if the house market does crash, if the banks know that you there's a high chance that you're probably just going to commit suicide soon, then they know that once that happens, you'll have to sell the house, and they'll be able to get their loan money back. And so they own the houses. Whoever's really, really rich and owns the money in the banks, that those are the ones. Whoever's got a huge investment in the banks, these are the wealthy ones. Why? Because these are the people who have been loaning out gigantic mortgages to people on the knowledge that there's going to be a housing market crash soon, but they'll be able to get every penny of their money back. The people, however, who've invested in properties, they won't be able to get their money back. So unless you own the lion's share of the house, if you own the lion's share and the house market halves, you'll still probably be able to pay off the mortgage in the next 10 years. So you'll still be a slave until you've paid off the mortgage. But technically, by having gigantic mortgages, you have turned people into slaves. And I'm trying to work out if that's a bad thing or not. On one hand, it is bad, because I could never get onto the proper market because I would refuse to get a loan. Plus, I couldn't get a job, and I don't like having a loan that's more than 7 years. If it's a loan that I can pay off in 7 years, I think that's fine. But any loans that you can't pay back in 7 years, to me, that would just feel like slavery. I was doing massage. I didn't want to do this job forever. I was hoping to stop, and so the idea of having a loan, knowing that I was going to have to work as a masseuse for the next 20 years just to pay off that mortgage, I would not have gone for that. And I could not be happy in a house knowing that I had such a big mortgage and that I was only going to be able to pay it off through massage money. That to me, that thought alone was more depressing than actually doing massage, to feeling like I have to not only do it for the rest of my life or just to do it to pay off the mortgage, that would feel like even more of a slave. So I wasn't going to do that. I understand though that if I had have done that, 10 years ago, the house that I was living in probably would have doubled in value. I probably would have been able to sell it and move into a smaller property and pay off the mortgage. So I didn't think about that. I guess I assumed that the house market wasn't going to go up. Every time it got to a new high, housing was expensive 10, 12 years ago. So I just assumed that it was not going to double anymore. I've been wanting a house ever since I was 12. And again, every few years it seemed to have doubled or just gone up massively. And therefore I didn't believe that the housing market was going to happen. And when I found out I was Christ, I was pretty sure that this housing market was going to just crash whenever I was exposed, which I thought was going to be, in 1 or 2 years. So taking out a mortgage was something that I never wanted to do because I know if the housing market does crash, I would still be liable to pay that mortgage, even if my house is less than what the mortgage is. I think if the house is less than what the mortgage is, you would sell up and you would just say, fine, the mortgage company can repossess the house. You've got your house back. I've got nothing, whatever. I would have accepted that. But yeah, if you have mortgages and lots of properties, even if it's only a £60,000 mortgage, they have a right to take the property off to sell it. But if the house is only worth 60,000, then yeah, investing in property is like renting. It's money that you'll never get back. Only as a property owner, you're responsible for making the houses look good and stuff. And maybe because there's loads of these housing deals. I found out that the benefits, I thought they were going to put padding in the ceiling, and I was a bit confused there because when he was explaining how he's putting the padding in the ceiling, he said he would take the old padding out. But I was like, there isn't any padding in there. And they said, oh no, you've got some sort of padding there, and we're going to take that out and then put that in. And I was a bit confused about that because he said I've got a very thin amount of padding, and if I touch the ceiling, there's something there, but I don't think it's padding, and I don't think it's you can't take it off. To put padding on the ceiling, you just need to put some sort of like material, cloth in there, and then you put lots of foam or something. I've seen them do it. You get some material, you put it on the ceilings, you staple the material into the walls, and then you just put lots of foam or just something to pad it. And yeah, so I thought I was going to get that. But the person who was doing this said that no, that's not what it is to take up the floorboards. And I did say that I didn't want the floorboards up, but I don't know, there must have been a confusion. But yeah, the whole roof has got floorboards down, and they said they would only put 3 boards back down, and that's That's not going to be good enough. I've got tons and tons of boxes. If I can't put the floorboards down, then I'm going to have to pay someone £300 to put the floorboards down. That might be less because they're already in the right shapes, but I'm going to have to pay someone £100 or £200 to come and fix it. And yeah, if the boxes can't go up there, then it means the boxes are going to be down here, and my house is going to be a total mess. So that's not what's. If I'm going to America, though, I don't know what I'll do though, because most of the I don't know, because it depends on if I'm selling the house. If I'm selling the house, then they might have to just come down. My sister has a garage where she can put them in, but she bought her partner a few years ago, the one that died, bought her a car, and it was worth about £2,000, and she kept it thinking that it's going to go up in value or she'll be able to sell it. I kept telling her it's going to go down in value. It's going to go down in value. And now that it's just been in a garage for 3 years or 2 years, it's worthless now, because it's probably got rust, or it might have problems with it, and it will need the money to fix it would be more than the money to buy to just get a new. So I don't know, but it's still in this garage that she's paying regularly money. She's paying, I don't know, £20 a week or something for this garage. So I don't know if there are if I do sell this property, I could just take the stuff from the attic down to there. But anyway, going back to the topic of they're putting filler in the walls. I don't know how much of a gap there is. I think there might be some filler in there. I don't know though, but they're going to put cavity foam through the walls. You put like a pipe in the wall, and then the foam kind of spreads, so that helps it keep warm. So it is going to be warmer because of that. And they might check to see if there is foam in the attic or not. I can't remember if he's put foam in the attic or not, but I think he's going to check for me. I will have to seal that up though afterwards, but it'll only be a small hole. I can fill that up. And yeah, but I'm wondering if the reason why they're offering all these grants is because there's like some sort of hidden check to see if these are one of the properties that have like a gigantic mortgage on. Because if they're thinking about the plan, and the plan is for millions of people to go in the rapture and believe that there's another world, basically they're going to be leaving lots of homes behind. Now the people who own the banks they're the ones who own the houses. So I'm wondering if where all these checks that they're doing to try and help homeowners and help people living in the houses, technically it's not going to help the homeowners currently. It's going to help whoever's going to be the homeowner in 2 or 3 years time. And so I'm wondering if all these grants to help get a new boiler or get a new cavity walls or getting new stuff, I'm wondering if it's actually all being done because the bankers know that a lot of people are about to go off into the rapture, and they basically want, they would want a house that has a new boiler. They would want a house that has ventilation. Even if I sell this property, whoever buys the property next would want this property. But if there's going to be a huge economy crash because huge amounts of people have left, and now the homes are like worthless, people aren't going to want to spend money on properties because properties will no longer have much value. And so I'm wondering if the government right now is saying, right, we've got all this tax money, what are we going to do with this tax money? Let's spend it on giving people free boilers and free installation and free lots of free stuff, because we know that we're investing in the properties, but we know that in the future there's going to be a lot of bad people are going to go, and there's going to be a lot of good people, and these people are going to be the ones who benefit. In 10 years time, who is going to benefit from there being better, well, not a boiler, because apparently boilers only last for 7 years, so a boiler's not going to last for 7 years, but in the next 3, 4, 5 years, what is going to be benefit? Well, having proper cavity walls and having proper installation is one of those ones where it would be beneficial until until it needs replacing. The installation in my attic does need replacing. I think some of it is quite damp, but at the same time, it's also I've got too much stuff out there. It's going to be too much. I can't have the boards being taken up and not put down, because then I won't be able to do anything with the stuff. So, but yeah, I'm wondering if that's the goal. That's the reason why all these benefit claims. You can get benefits if you already on benefits. But I think that the catch is they might actually be doing checks to see if this is one of the properties that is likely going to be sold to the banks. If a bank has £100,000 mortgage on a property, on a 400,000 pound property, and then if the property market halves and the owner has to and the banks have to repossess the house, having all these things is actually just going to help the bankers. So I'm wondering if the reason why if the reason why all these properties are having renovations on them isn't to help the people that are currently living in there, even though it will help anyone who lives in there, but it will also help the bankers, because if they're about to repossess all the houses, because everyone becomes in debt, or everyone with a mortgage becomes in debt, that's maybe that's the real reason. And maybe that's the reason why you've invited loads of migrants into England, so that they can sell their £200,000 property in another country, come here. Technically, other countries aren't as nice. There's some places in Italy as well that just look a dump. Where was it? Somewhere in the south. There was some places that just looked like a complete mess. They looked like the Middle East. There were some places in Italy that looked like the Middle East, and maybe the people that don't go in the rapture from those countries are going to want to come to England. So maybe they thought, why don't we take a lot of these people and bring them to England now, get them to buy a house, get them to work, pay off or buy half the house, and then when the house market crashes, the bankers are just going to repossess the houses. But at least England is nice. England looks quite pretty. There are some places in Italy that I 100% don't want to live in, and I know there's some places in England as well that I 100% don't want to live in. But there are a lot of. Birmingham is nice. It's not very nice, but I think if there was a massive housing market crash all around the world, I'm pretty sure there are plenty of people in uglier places that would like to come to prettier places. I complain about England's and the weather that we have here, but I know Russia's worse. I'm wondering if that's the real reason behind the Russia versus Ukraine war. If the housing market all around the world massively drops, there's probably going to be a lot of people that are in the north of Russia that don't want to live in the north of Russia because it's too cold in the winter, and they're going to want to move more south. Now, if they don't have much land, they won't have that much option of where to go heat-wise, so they might want to go to Ukraine. But then again, they might even just come to England. So they might go anywhere. They'll go to a climate that's better, and therefore, if there are cities that are very, very cold, I believe the migration in those places are going to, or very, very cold in the winter, throughout the whole of the winter particularly, the level of destruction might be so high that their houses might just be empty. Like, they literally might just be there might be whole cities that are probably just empty, and these people are going to migrate to hotter places. I think if you've come from Canada or North Russia, and especially North Canada or North Russia, you could just move to the south of Canada or the south of Russia. But I think they might want to come even warmer, and technically England is warmer. Not warmest, but yeah, trying to think about the future. And those are just things that I have to say. So I want to say my eyes. I haven't got my goggles yet, and my eyes are really, really hurting. And I think it's because of the high chlorine that they have in the jacuzzi. And yeah, does chlorine damage your eye? You're supposed to spend 15 minutes in it, but I spend 45 minutes in it 3 times a week, and I've been doing that for years. But I'm noticing that I actually start feeling blind because of it. I feel like sometimes my eyes are being destroyed. Like sometimes I'm feeling like my eyes are being blurred out, and I feel my eyes are getting blurry because of the high chlorine levels, and I'm wondering if the chlorine level is higher now than it was last year. I literally feel like I'm being poisoned by them, and it's strange how I find the angel of poison like just at the same point where this starts happening. But yeah, eyes recover, right? I don't know, but Maybe I'm just rubbing it more. I'm trying not to rub my eyes. But yeah, the goggles will come through hopefully today or tomorrow. We'll see.